Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you. I am Nicole Cliffe. As you know, my column runs Monday and Friday. It is called Care and Feeding. I was not here last week because first I had a babysitting issue and then I was sick. But I'm here now. I hope to be with you every Tuesday. I got to do a really cool thing last week. Which is my husband and I sponsor the Autistic Self Advocacy Network's Leadership Summer Camp, which is this awesome free program for autistic college students. And we bring them, well, this year it was virtually, but usually they get brought, hotel accommodation paid for, to DC for 2 weeks, and they learn how to lobby a congressperson and write a petition and just, talk about how to advocate for yourself on campus as an autistic person, how to build that institutional knowledge. It's super cool. So I'll talk about that a little bit more with Julia Bascom, who's the current head of the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, closer to next year's due date. But if you are an autistic college student or the parent of an autistic college student and you would like more information, I encourage you to check out the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, ASAN. It's super great. It's by autistic people for autistic people. But I got to talk to the students, and they were all really awesome. We had a great time. You do not have to have a formal medical diagnosis because a lot of people don't have health insurance options. It's a lot harder to get diagnosed as an adult. So, if you identify as autistic, that's good enough for ASAN. In addition to that, you do not have to be verbal because there are a lot of nonverbal autistic people who are very good at communicating via typing, via other assisted technology, and they are very welcome at the Summer Leadership Camp. And if you have to attend with an aide, that's just fine too. I will be the keynote speaker at their gala in November, which will also be online. So I will, I guess, wear a ball gown and hold a champagne flute in my bathroom while delivering a speech into my laptop on the bathroom sink. It'll be on YouTube. I'm sure you'll want to see that. Okay, let's get down to today's questions. Now, the first two are ones I answered in the column, but we're going to have some fun with them here, and then we'll see what the other three are. Oh, and today my hat says Richard E. Grant should have won the Oscar, which is pretty self-explanatory if you know Richard E. Grant. And my shirt is just Roots, that Canadian brand. Sometimes Australian tourists buy this shirt as a joke because Roots means something very different in Australia. So these shirts are mainly bought by Canadians who want to support Roots and by Australians who want to send them to their friends as a humorous prank. All right, first question. I have a son who is just over 2 who recently developed a problem going to sleep in his own bed. One night after our bedtime routine of reading stories, his dad and I were saying goodnight, and his dad added that "don't let the bed bugs bite," saying. Immediately, a look of horror crossed my son's face, and he sat up and pointed at the bed, asking, "Bite? Bite?" over and over. Obviously, we tried to reassure him and tell him nothing was going to bite him. But ever since then, he refuses to lay down in his bed and go to sleep. I usually have to hold him until he falls asleep in my arms and then lay him down. At this point, I'm not sure if he's just using the situation to not go to sleep on his own or what. For what it's worth, he really does seem scared of the bed, so I have a hard time forcing him to lay in his bed. What can we do? So something cool happened, which is that I answered this question, and then because I read the comments, other people suggested that an idea I had come up with for a previous question might also work here in addition to that. So my initial answer was, obviously keep saying there are no bed bugs. There are absolutely no bed bugs. Don't worry about the bed bugs. They do not exist. But to see if it's really the bed or if he's just using this as a way to get rocked to sleep instead of lying down in his bed, I suggested that you pull the mattress or just the bedding or a sleeping bag and place it on the floor next to the bed, because kids don't know that bed bugs actually live and lay their hideous little eggs in the mattress. They're just beautifully innocent of that. So if he really is scared of the bed, the sleeping bag or bedding thing should work. And if it turns out that, in fact, he just wants to be rocked and held, which is very developmentally normal for a 2-year-old, you can just gradually fade that like you would any other sort of soothing transitional activity. Now, where the commenters came in was they linked it back to a question I had a few weeks ago about a little girl who was terrified that spiders were going to come out of the toilet and, eat her. And I said, well, tell her there are no spiders. I said, but a good life hack for this with parenting, which I think is pretty harmless, is to get like an empty, Febreze type bottle, put a little like food coloring or anything that just changes the color but won't stain, porcelain, and label it with masking tape like spider spray and have them just mist the toilet before they go to bed. And you can say, so if a spider does come up, you can say, oh, well, the spider spray only fends off dangerous spiders, like friendly spiders who eat mosquitoes are not affected by it. And so people suggested, I think wisely, that you could do the same thing with like bed bug spray. And again, continually reiterating that there are no bed bugs of any kind. But as I also pointed out, kids are very literal, and I'm surprised more kids do not respond in this way to the offhand bedbug comment. See also, if I should die before I wake, we say a lot of creepy things to kids. So if you have a fairly literal child, I encourage you to kind of hold back on that. Okay, that's my answer to question 1. All right, question number 2. As a mother of boys, a daughter-in-law, and a reader of this advice column, I have one question. Do all mother-in-laws suck? Seriously, it is my fear that no matter what I do, in the very distant future, my relationship with my boys will never be close if they get married. I know there are a few amazing ones out there, but the vast majority of them seem to always be tolerated by their sons at best. Okay, so this again is one I answered in the column, but I want to make sure that all you people who just stay on Facebook, etc., also hear my answer, which is that we have a drastically warped view of healthy mother-in-law relationships because we don't see them on TV because they're very boring, like the Barones on, Everybody Loves Raymond. That show would not have run for a billion years if that was a good mother-in-law who practiced like solid boundaries and wasn't intrusive and was simply warmly interested in their lives and helpful. Similarly, people do not write to advice columns about their warm, functional relationship with their mothers-in-law. So, no one has ever been like, Dear Abby, my mother-in-law is amazing. She respects me. She gives me space to parent my children in the way I see fit. She always brings the best potato salad to the potluck. I hope you are well as well. Love, person. That just doesn't happen. We exclusively get letters from people who have problems. I have seen tons of really nice mother-in-law situations in the wild. My mother-in-law is no longer with us, but I'm sure she was an angel. My mother loves my husband more than she loves me. It's close, but he would love her to move in with us. And I have a lot of friends who have fantastic, fantastic relationships with their mothers-in-law. So what I want this letter writer to do is focus on the variables they can control. Because here's the thing, you absolutely might have just like a baseline personality conflict with a daughter or a son-in-law because you don't know who your sons are going to wind up with. And there are always going to be misunderstandings. There's going to be tension. There's going to be crisis moments. There are going to be things you just don't see eye to eye on. But it's helpful to be able to say, I did my best to make this work and to really mean it. And the things that you can do are the things that most good mother-in-law relationships do have in common, by which I mean respecting boundaries, not attempting to parent your grandchildren. Do not complain about your son's partner to their partner. Do not complain about your son's partner to your son. That's something like if you want to dish with the girls at lunch about that, go to town. But it's not something that should ever penetrate that relationship. You should be warm and interested in this person's life without being intrusive or poking questions at things that you sense are sort of private or vulnerable. Um, don't wear a white dress to the wedding, and don't wear full black Victorian mourning garb to the wedding, which I have seen happen on the internet and is a real bad scene. Don't cause a huge fuss during the mother and son dance by sort of like sinking to the floor and grabbing his knees. I also, because you're writing me this letter, I'm a little concerned that years in advance you're already seeing yourself in competition with your son's future partners for his love. So I would encourage you to not do that, and to remember that, if they find a partner, like, that person is going to become their nuclear family. And that's just how things work. And that is the circle of life. And it's very, very normal. I also included a link to a letter which haunts me to this day, which is the letter from the woman who sent her daughter, her very young daughter, to stay with her mother over her husband's objection, because he didn't think that mother-in-law was super good at supervising the kids. And the kid came back -2 fingers. And at no point did the letter writer explain what happened to the fingers, which I think is hugely relevant here. The point of this in relation to the question is that if you return a child -2 fingers, you need to wait until your son and his partner are comfortable returning that child to you, which may be never. But if anyone watching this wrote that letter and knows what happened to the fingers, please write me. Because honestly, the answer changes so much. If you slammed those fingers in a car door, the kid did accidentally, it's a very there but for the grace of God go I situation. But if they let them operate a chainsaw or wood chipper or rusty farm implements stacked in a heap, that's a different story. And I would really like to know what happened to the fingers. So if you have any idea, please write in to Slate's Care and Feeding column and let us know, because I know I'm not the only one who thinks about this. The readers bring it up frequently. Okay, so that's my answer to question number 2. And I very much hope that you have fantastic relationships with your son's partners, whoever they may be. All right. Help, please. My husband and I married 20 years ago, and we each had teenage children from previous marriages. My 2 daughters have 4 children each, and his 1 daughter has 2. All the grandboys, 18 to 2 years old, are crazy about him, but we definitely see 3 of them the most often due to proximity. They are brothers, my younger daughter's sons, ages 11, 8, and 2. I noticed when the 2 older ones were practicing baseball with him a few years ago that Grandpa would say things about throwing or running like a girl. There would be one-off comments that were immediately followed by other chatter, so rather than correct him and disrupt their flow and put him in a foul mood, I never really made a connection. Correction. The other day, the 2-year-old was over by himself. Dylan is an exceptionally pleasant toddler, charming and civil. Grandpa wanted to engage with him as he stood between us running a car along the tabletop where we were seated, so he said quite pointedly, "Dylan, are you a boy or a girl?" No response. "Hey, Dylan, are you a boy or a girl?" Nothing. "Huh, buddy, are you a boy or a girl?" I was speechless. Fortunately, I wasn't required to break up this line of inquiry because Dylan started jibber-jabbering about the toy he had. This really weighs on me, though. My husband and I do not have the kind of relationship that allows a frank discussion of how that interaction made me feel. I do, however, want this kind of implied gender stereotyping to never happen again around me. I do not want any of my grandkids to associate me with it. I need help bringing it up, stating my needs, and hopefully not starting World War III. Okay, it's not great that you don't feel comfortable talking to your husband about this, because I don't see any way to fix the situation without having a conversation with your husband about it. So, when I first read this letter, I assumed that Grandpa was your dad, and that these were your sister's kids. That is not the case. You are married to Grandpa. You are Grandma. These are your daughter's children. So this is very much your business. So in the moment, I encourage you to say, "That's a weird thing to say," or "That's a strange question," and see what happens from there. Like, he might belt up, or he might, decide to push further. That's all well and good, but there's no way that you're going to resolve this without actually waiting till he says something and then sitting down with him afterwards and saying, hey, I don't like that. You might have to have a fight over it. Sometimes in marriages, you actually have to have the fight. There's no reason why a normal person would turn this into World War III. That's very unhealthy. So I think that you should. It just disturbs me that you don't think you can have a frank discussion with your own husband about this sort of thing. You've been married for an extremely long time. So just have the conversation. You're not going to know until you try it. If he blows up, then you've got a really important data point about how he deals with being in any way critiqued or confronted. And that's relevant information. No, you don't want your grandchildren doing this. I would also have a conversation with your daughter. And I would say, Grandpa has said X, Y, and Z, and I'm not comfortable with it. And I was wondering how you would like me to handle it if it happens again. Your daughter may say, I am willing to talk to Grandpa about this. I have very strong feelings. Or she may be like, could you maybe say something to him? At which point you should say something to him. Or she may have some in the moment comebacks. She may want to supervise a little more closely. There may be things she wants to say to de-escalate the situation. But no, you are not wrong to be annoyed by this, to be concerned by this, to not want yourself to be associated with this line of questioning. And I'm concerned. I'm legitimately concerned that you don't feel this is something that you can talk to your husband about. So I really do want you to have a conversation with your husband about this, but I would speak to your daughter first. So that's my answer to that question. I have some more questions to answer, but I would just like to remind everyone to go ahead and drop their own questions in the comment section, and I will attempt to get to them. They can be any kind of question you want. Pets, hats, it really doesn't matter. All right. My 10-month-old baby, always a good start. My 10-month-old baby has discovered the joy of touching his penis during diaper changes. I don't care and ignore when he does it during his bath, but I really don't want to deal with a bout of pediatric E. coli because he got poop on his hands and then put them in his mouth. I try to distract him by handing him toys, teethers, or honestly anything else in reach that isn't a choking hazard, but he's much more interested in what's going on down below. I also tried a standing up diaper change, but he's an early walker and ended up chasing down a half-naked baby and lying him down to get the clean diaper on. Is there a non-sex shamey way of saying, ew, gross, that's dirty, don't touch that, or am I overthinking this? Yeah, there really isn't a great non-shamey way to say that. Also, he's a baby, so he's not going to notice. Many people do the thing where you, especially with boys, where you put the clean diaper sort of like as a little tent over the penis, mostly to prevent having boys pee in your face. So I would encourage you to give that a shot. You may want to try a more prized toy for him to hold, but honestly, little boys, they're just going to grab their dicks. It's just a thing they're going to do. I think, if he's just grabbing his penis and his penis is clean, you should just let it roll. You should just let it roll. I think there's not really a problem here. If it's like one of those colossal diaper blowouts, so there's actually like fecal matter involved in the penis, then I would just use my hand to keep his hands where they are while I wipe that situation down. But no, I generally, it's not a great idea to be like, ew, gross, no, about kids grabbing their penises. As he gets older, obviously you can be like, that's for private time, that's for in your room, etc. But he's not going to process anything at this stage of his life. So you're really better off picking your battle here, avoiding poop. But otherwise, if he wants to grab his penis, just, congratulations, you're grabbing your penis. But I do recommend trying the new diaper tent. And if things are very messy, sort of holding down those hands as best you can and trying to find a better toy. The kids all have that one toy they'll do anything for. And that may be your best bet. And also, if it's a really messy diaper, if your partner is around, tag team it. That's the easiest way to go. But that's not always possible. And that's why diaper tent often works really, really well. And you can also sort of press it down a little bit so you have leverage holding your child on the changing pad as best you can. I am very sorry. Thank you for writing to me with this question. All right. I am in desperate need of some help with regards to my 3-year-old during mealtime. She's always been a good eater, she's never been fussy about what she eats, and she still isn't. Lately, it's been taking her forever to eat her whole meal. I thought it was because I didn't have her sit down for all of her meals and the TV was on, so she got distracted. I've tried to sit her down at the table, no distractions, and she still manages to take over an hour to eat sometimes, and it's with food she likes. I'm currently dealing with a tantrum after taking away the rest of her food. After a long time letting her sit and eat, she didn't have much left, and I gave her 2 warnings, and in 15 minutes she had managed to just play with it and only take 2 bites. I'd be completely fine if that meant she was done, but she absolutely loses her mind when I make it very clear to her I'm taking it away and when I follow through on that. On top of that, if she does manage to eat all her food, the second she gets out of her high chair, she asks for a snack. It's frustrating. We're going to have a baby within the next 2 weeks, so I'd like to try to solve this. My patience is wearing thin because I'm huge and pregnant and just not in the mood for these tantrums. Am I being unreasonable to expect her to eat her food in less than an hour? Should I just let her figure it out and leave her there for as much time as she needs? Oh boy, that's a long time. Okay, so you don't. First of all, let's just deal with this minor side issue. You don't have to give her a snack after dinner. I might encourage that you give her a treat if she finishes her meal within an hour to sort of reinforce that hour thing. And then you've got 2 choices. You can either be like, okay, sit at the table as long as you want, finish your meal, that's fine. That's fine. Some people do eat really slowly and always have. If it doesn't drastically interfere with the rest of your night. Now, she's sitting there like 4 hours. That's a disaster. But I think that you've already gotten rid of the distraction, i.e., the TV, which is super, super important because obviously kids will stretch that out forever. But I don't think an hour with multiple reminders is unreasonable. And I think that if 15 minutes out, you're like, okay, in 15 minutes, the plate is going away, and that'll be it. That's okay. That's fine. She's had an hour to eat, and she will either get used to that or not. And I think you just have to push through this. I think you just have to push through this, unless you get the sense that, I would maybe call her pediatrician, just because there are some people who need to eat really, 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 really slowly to avoid feeling nauseated. And if that's her, I would hate to be telling you to push through, that 1 hour mark and hold firm to it. And at that point, I would be like, okay, just let her sort it out herself. In the absence of that, I think you are fine. And if she throws a tantrum when you take away her plate, after an hour, she throws a tantrum. And that's just how that's going to go. And I think that's A-okay. I think that's fine. And also, this is like peak tantrum age. It really is. You're not going to fix this in the 2 weeks before your baby comes. But you will care about it less after your baby comes because you're going to be dealing with your baby. So I can't predict whether things will get easier or harder after that for your child. But I can state that if your goal is to have this wrapped up in 2 weeks, it's probably not going to happen. But if you stick with it, if you're consistent in terms of, and again, reminders are fantastic, and then taking the plate away, and then having the kitchen be done for the night, I think that'll work out well. So that's my answer to that question. And I think I am now, let's see, I am now out of questions. Does anybody have any questions for me other than that, or are we ending early today? I will wait for my producer to let me know. Okay, I think that's it. I encourage you to ask any questions you want to Karen Feeding at Slate. If you want to talk to me in particular, you're always welcome to say, I would like Nicole to answer this, or Ruman, or Michelle, or Jamila. Anybody you think would be best suited for your particular question. If it's about teenagers, generally, ask Michelle. She's had them. I haven't. Okay, guys, that is all for me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and I love you very much. Okay, bye.